Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Sports Gaming. So, the discussion is Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn agreed to meet for a bite to eat. So, I don't usually watch, to be honest, I don't usually watch Eddie Hearn interviews. And I don't watch Frank Warren interviews that much. In fact, I can't remember the last time I watched a Frank Warren interview. I just haven't got the time. So I decided to come out of the bubble because this is something that really interests me. Oh, wow. I tell you, if you're a BWTM supporter and you've been around for more than 3 years, if you were around the time of Bayloric TV, this interview that Eddie Hearn did, he did, I think it would have been just before the final press conference for Jonas versus Harper. And that after he did it interview, he was talking about how Frank put up the poster for the various fights, and he explained, why certain fights could be made, and that was all good. It was all cool. And the interview asked him about Michael Hunter. Now, I want you all to remember the things I said about Michael Hunter. If you can't remember, go back to my video I did about Michael Hunter. He talked about Michael Hunter. He talked about the reasons why he couldn't keep Michael Hunter. He said he believed Michael Hunter would go on to be a world heavyweight champion. He thinks he's good enough to become a world heavyweight champion. He even believes, he thinks Michael Hunter's a good guy. But being a good guy, being a good fighter, and having the ability to become world heavyweight champion isn't enough in this new world. It isn't enough in this new world. What the promoter's basically saying is that if you've got no personality, if you've got no marketing strategy, if you've got nothing to draw the fans in apart from you're a good fighter, you could become world heavyweight champion and you can fight and being a nice guy, that's not going to cut it anymore. That's not going to cut it. You need to have the X factor about you. And if you don't have the X factor about you, you're going, or you're gone, or you're marked for death. In other words, your time is up. And it's only depending on how long your contract is how long you've probably got left under that stable. Now, I said this before, and again, my words seem to be ringing true, because again, we're talking about contracts and fighters just thinking all they have to do is roll up and fight, and that they find doing interviews online, particularly through YouTube, a pain. They think that by doing mainstream interviews is going to save their career. It's not saving your career. It hasn't saved your career, Michael Hunter. Do you understand? You have to be out there and you have to be doing interviews. I believe you've got to do more interviews. I believe YouTube is the place to go. I believe you've got to be strategic about what you're doing. I believe you've got to do certain interviews with certain people. And I'm not going to say much, but sometimes doing interviews with the popular brands gets you in a lot of trouble. Yes, they get in a lot of trouble. They don't mind hanging you out to dry. I'm not mentioning any names, but it's out there and you can see it for yourself. So people like Michael Hunter, and I'm not digging out Michael Hunter because I like Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter's a cool guy, but you have to do your work on social media. It mustn't be a pain. You can't pick and choose when you want to do these interviews. The interviews are as much as important to your career now as it is your training. Training, because you've got to build a brand. And if you haven't got a brand, if you're just a fighter that can fight, that just isn't enough anymore. It just isn't enough. Oh, I've had an explosion here. Yeah, feel for fighters like Hunter. He was given an opportunity to prevent it, and he won. Maybe Eddie would have kept him on. No, I don't think so. Hey, how we doing? Had an explosion online here. Fighters like Hunter really need to make most of their opportunities, because if they lose, they haven't got the personality to keep on big shows. Right. Well, this is it. So we'll just go into that. Well, I can go into a whole show on that. Right. All these big time Charlies. That's the word I call them. big time Charlies that feel they don't need to do interviews, or feel that interviews are too much, or they shouldn't do interviews with small brands, or they shouldn't do interviews with small time YouTube channels. I'm telling you now, all this stuff is going to come back and bite them in the butt. What my words, you're going to find anybody who gets it, any fighter that gets it and understands the YouTube platform is the way forward. Is the way forward. Check this out. Is it not YouTubers that are making more money than half the majority of the fighters that are fighting today? 2 YouTubers go and put a show on. A YouTuber is now fighting on the undercard of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. A YouTuber. Do you not fighters not get it? You need to brand yourselves. Have a brand. Who are you? What? Okay, you're a boxer. You can fight. Okay, you've got skills. You're a nice guy. Who cares? Why should people care about your brand, and why should people care about you? See these words and stuff I'm saying here? You all take it for granted what I'm saying to you. But every time I speak, you watch what happens. You watch what happens. I speak it, and then it comes into existence, and it bees. You're going to find a lot of these fighters catching their ass now. A lot of them. And bigger names are coming. And Hearn's already alluded to it, that bigger names are coming. You know, why do you think Kell Brook is shouting about this and shouting about Crawford and shouting about this person and shouting about that person? Why is it? Because they know they're under pressure. They're under pressure. They know now they've got to sell themselves in a way they could. They've got to go out now and sell themselves. Can't just leave it down to the promoter anymore, because Morato's got more pressures and he's got to deliver for those other fighters he's got longer contracts with. Do you understand? And those who are in date. So now a promoter's got to look at, okay, you're in date. Have you got an X factor? Let me see. I don't care if you really can fight. If you've got the X factor, I can market and strategize around you. I can get you ducking certain fights. I can get you fighting for minor belts. But if you can bring the crowd, if you can bring the crowds in, if that's not necessarily bringing the crowds in via bringing the crowds in through the gate, then bring them on via virtually. If you can bring people in interested in you, then when the crowds come back, then you know people are going to be interested. People like Josh Warrington did the work. They got themselves attached to a football club, and you know the football club's the football's still on now, going on, and I think those things matter a lot. Hey! Fighters in this day and age are brands. Their 80s are over. It's not good enough to depend on your promoter to do all the work for you. Agreed. Hey! MZTT UK, great to see you in the room. Really great to see you in the room. Exactly, Ingram. That's why I represent you in your exhibition fight. I will only ask for 10%. I'm cheap. I'm sure there are a few people out there who wouldn't mind seeing me in an exhibition bout. Does becoming big on YouTube mean too big commitment for fighters? Let me read that again. Does becoming big on YouTube mean too big commitment for fighters? I don't understand your question, mate. To get big YouTube following, they probably need to put out video every couple of days. Yes. Okay, so 2 things I would advise boxers today. If you remember rightly, track back to my videos I was doing on Dillian Whyte. I said Dillian Whyte needs to become a brand. And one of the ways Dillian Whyte can become a brand is to start his own YouTube channel. And of course, people laughed at me and said, why would he need to do that? Bang! What's Dillian Whyte doing? He's got his YouTube channel. He's building a brand, Dillian Whyte. Like him or hate him, the guy, he's branded for many reasons, but Dillian Whyte. He's branded as a guy who hasn't had a WBC title shot. He's branded for that. He can be branded for the guy that ducked Luis Ortiz. He can now be branded for the bad guy that dropped Tibbs, right? He can be branded for the guy who got knocked out by Anthony Joshua. He can get branded for many things, Dillian Whyte. But he's branded. He's branded. All right? And he's in, you talk about the top 4 heavyweights, okay? Joshua, Wilder, Fury. His name actually comes in the list there. Morning all. Kelly Sowland in Magpie clothes. Forest Gate. Yeah. What about it, Mr. Sauerland? At the pot listening to you. Oh, wow. Wow, that's scary. That's some scary stuff. Wow, that's very scary. Ahara as a YouTube channel, but it's pretty boring. Yeah, but then, when you've got big fights that are happening, big fights that are about to happen, I think, those things are important. Then those YouTube channels become a factor. Those things become a factor. So yeah. So let's talk. So again, the promoters talked about fighters leaving. So every boxer needs to have a YouTube channel. 1, 2, you got to start getting yourself around these. You need to start getting yourself connected with all these YouTube channels, and be careful who you do your YouTube interviews with. Of course, I'm not saying everyone should come and do interviews with BWTM, but I always say, you try and put a person in their best light and build a backstory. Unfortunately, I don't think these people like Sky Sports, unless you're a big fighter, there's no real backstory to your career. So you need to build a backstory. You need to build a following. Let me give you an example of a perfect example of building a fighter's backstory. If you'll remember, follow the journey when Bermain Stavern was fighting Deontay Wilder for the second time. Yeah, there was only 2 people that were cared about that story: Showtime for Deontay Wilder and ourselves for Bermain Stavern. We were getting exclusives almost right up to the night before the fight. We were talking to Stavern. Of course, people were hurt and upset and devastated by it. By the way, Stavern got beat that night, right? Because people believed in it. People were hyped. People were saying, you know what? He's one of us. He's one of our guys. And they would love to have been there to celebrate the fact that, this guy, Bermain Stavern, was going to be fighting Deontay Wilder again. And we're looking for they bought into the whole what happened with Stavern in the first fight. So they thought Stavern could turn it around. Again, we've had another great night. We have Usyk when he fought and won the world title, the WBO title against Glowacki. Remember that night? We'd built that story up for Usyk to become champion. Now, I'm not saying that because of us, Usyk's is out there now because he's a great fighter. But what we're saying is that's the way you build your brand. Find 3 or 4 stations that are going to support you, and don't throw them away. Don't dismiss them, because the way you dismiss these channels is the way you're being dismissed. All such things in karma. What you put out there is going to come back. What you put out there is going to come back. I'm telling you. Boxer YouTube channels just become propaganda channels when they post training and stuff. That's boring. Casuals want more raw beef. LOL. No, I don't agree with you on that at all. I don't agree with you that at all, because when you do YouTube channels, it's not propaganda at all. How can it be propaganda? You get in the gym, working out, watching, showing people your diet, what you eat, how you train, how what you have to put your body through, seeing with your wife and your kids, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? I remember when we went and saw Josh Sandlin, and we did it with Josh Sandlin. We did an element of him training in the gym. We saw him at home with his lovely partner and their kids. He sit at home talking with them. We walked around with Josh Sandlin. It's getting you an experience of getting to know the fighter. It's not just enough that you can fight. It's not just enough. So I totally disagree with you, because if that was the case, these guys on YouTube, yes, beef has become a part of it, but their content leading up to it was non-boxing related. Their content reading into things was non-boxing related, and then there was a beef between one channel and another channel, because both channels had built some following and built something about them. So people knew the backstory of these 2 guys that fought. KSI and Jake Paul. There was a backstory. These guys have done everything. KSI, I remember him not only doing boxing, I remember him going and doing the football videos and stuff when he first started out. So I remember watching these guys and how they grew and how they've grown into brands. So I disagree with you there. I think every boxer listening should have their own YouTube channel. I do. I'll tell you another thing's going to happen. You see a lot of these PR people at the moment are running around in boxing, running around, and signing and getting these boxers and lead them down the wrong way. These PR, a lot of these people need to get shot because they don't know about boxing. What they understand is about how to sell a band in a corporate world, where you work in a business world. It doesn't work with boxing. That PR people try and keep you away from the best way to describe a lot of these PR people is they'll take the boxers away from where they were brought up, take them away from the environment and the people that they know, and isolate them in a world that they don't know, and cut off all their ties. And even if only if the box is strong enough, he keeps that keeps those ties. Right? He keeps those ties. Now you look at someone like Terence Crawford, for example. That guy's for me, he's in no man's land. He's in no man's land. Like, he really needs to be going to PBC. Right? I'm going off topic slightly, but he really needs to be going to PBC. Because if you think about it, if he went to PBC, he'd get all the smoke there is, he'd get to fight all the fighters, eventually get to fight all the fighters, and build to that Spence fight. He could do something really historical, leave Top Rank, go to PBC and say, I'm only going to come to PBC on this contract, and the contract is serve me up the best fight you've got, and I'm taking on fight after fight after fight. Now, if he did that, that would be amazing. So you could brand it as, I'm the bogeyman of the division. Who wants it? I'm leaving Top Rank to get the biggest and best fights, and sign a contract, whatever the contract be, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, whatever it is, which leads up to the Spence fight. I don't know. But you do something like that, that's making a statement. That is making a statement. I said this about Tyson Fury. I said, Tyson, drop the belts, and go and make a defense of the Ring magazine. He ended up dropping the belts, and for the most part, it seems to have done him good. Let's go back to what the promoter was saying. So he was talking about he's going to let some fighters go, world champions even. So start looking around at Matchroom and start looking at fighters who are world champions. Gennady Golovkin's another one. I think they call him a superstar. But let's see, Derevyanchenko beat the crap out of him. Gennady Golovkin is in fast decline, right? I know everyone wants to talk about the Canelo rematch, but why is nobody talking about the Derevyanchenko rematch? Just a question. You all want to talk about the Canelo fight. What about giving Derevyanchenko that rematch? Oh, it's okay. Charlo can fight him. But we'll leave that to one side. Let's come back to what the promoter was talking about. So we talked about Michael Huntner. We talked about him also discussing about letting fighters go. Bud doing his own thing. Have to respect that. Ain't going to have his hand forced by being blackballed. Mate, listen, it's a jolly good job that you're not in business with anybody, of any brands, because they would sink in a minute. Doing your own thing in this new world will not work. It cannot work like that. It can't. Look at Bud. I mean, who's he fought as a welterweight? Doing his own thing. And every day, steadily, his stock is going down and down and down. His stock is not increasing. And if he fights another guy that you don't care about, then what? So I disagree with you again. Bud needs to be in those big fights. For a guy that's got all his ability, for a guy that's maybe pound for pound, for a guy, when he came into the welterweight division, he came in by storm. He took care of Jeff Hearn. And steadily, fight after fight, it's been less and less interesting. The Khan fight was a no-brainer. We knew he was going to knock Khan out. Or beat Khan up. Khan's finished. Washed. Kell Brook, another washed fighter. Brook gives you something different, but he's washed as well. To be honest, guy's got, as far as I'm concerned, he's always looking at one eye. If you look at the way he's fighting, he gets caught with way too many right hands. So I don't see that being a fight either. Give me Crawford versus Porter. I'm interested. Give me Porter versus Ray Robinson. I'm very interested. Give me Porter versus Thurman. I love that. Give me Crawford versus Garcia. I love that. Give me those fights. And as a boxing fan, those fights need to be made. And if you can come through those fights unbeaten, then hey, why not? Crawford versus Spence, that's a super fight. But you're building towards that. At least Spence, for his part, he's fought Mikey Garcia. Even Mikey Garcia versus Crawford. Make that fight happen. Make Mikey Garcia versus Crawford happen. Really, Crawford should have that Pacquiao fight again. But I don't agree with what you're saying, Ruben, about just letting him carry on doing his own thing. You know, because boxing needs big fights. What you're saying is Crawford should be allowed to carry on with his career, which is plummeting. It's not doing him any favours. Look at Spence. I don't agree with him coming back and fighting Garcia right off the bat. I don't agree with it. It's brave. It's machismo. If he gets it right, fantastic. If he gets it wrong, why? Oh, but it was a great fight. What for? You hurt your brand by getting beat by Garcia. 1. 2, people can say what they want to fight, the best fight the best. When you get beat in this era, in this society, people quickly move on to next best flavour, the next unbeaten fighter. So you got to be careful how you market yourself and manage yourself. So there's risk versus reward to be thought about, to be considered. But I don't agree with what you're saying there, Ruben. So moving on, let's talk further. Let's talk again about what Hearn was talking about. He was talking about trolling. And he was talking about people grassing up at other people and people trying to sabotage other people. I'm not going to say anything about that, but it sounds like a bit of karma there. And it sounds to me like you get a taste of your medicine, you don't like it. That's what it sounds to me there. So, with that being, although that being said, those who know what I'm talking about, reading between the lines, and I hope that they're listening, can elaborate on what I'm saying there. I'm not saying anything. I'd rather another source talk about it that knows what I'm talking about and knows the true story. But as far as I'm concerned, karma, beautiful, sweet. That's all I wanted to hear. Moving swiftly on. So I have no sympathy there. Moving swiftly on. Going for a bite to eat. Now, this one here, I'm a read into this one, right? So forget the fights for 1 second. Let me look at it is from, I'm not going to say from Frank's standpoint, but I'm going to try and look into this from a little bit of inspiration, let's say I got. Pick this for one moment. Imagine, you heard the expression, if you can't beat them, join them. But there's another part to that. When you join them, get inside and clean their ass out. In other words, that basically means that when you decide to join forces, think about it. Frank's a shrewd guy. This could be career suicide for Frank. If his fighters all get beat by matchroom fighters, he's finished. His day's done. But check this out. Frank's smart. Frank's got fighters there. He knows. When he put those fights together, he knows what he's doing. Frank knows how to match. He knows how to matchmake. He knows his way around the ring in terms of boxing IQ and understanding matchmaking and fights. Hearn's not so good with that. Hearn and his team were not so good with that. And whereas they would be chasing the money, Frank will simply be picking off their fighters and their fighters getting beat. That's the way I see this. I think Frank, in my opinion, I think strategically, Frank joining forces with a matchroom to make the big fights happen. If you know your boxing and you know the sort of fighters that Frank generally works with, it's the substance versus the show. When you think about it, if you were to combine Frank and Eddie, you'd get the best of both worlds, and you probably arguably could have the best boxing outfit in the world. In the world. Nobody could to step to them in that way. Because you think about it, Frank knows how to build the fighters. So Frank knows how to build a champion. And Matchroom know how to promote a fighter. You put those two together. You can't knock what Eddie does in terms of promotion. You can't knock what Eddie does in terms of getting you out there in that sense. You can't knock that. But he can't do what a fighter's meant to do. A fighter's still got a responsibility to brand themselves, not just show up and fight. There's a lot more to it than that, and Eddie cannot do those things, and that's where a fighter has to step up to the plate and show that they're a brand. So I come back to this branding again, and having the right team around you. So, question I've got to ask myself as well is, will security start getting cut as well? For all these big fights, will security start getting cut? Because you used to have loads of security around. Will the security need to be that much if there's no crowds? Question to be asked. So, this situation with Frank and Eddie coming together and having this meeting and this meal and making these fights happen, I would... Frank's a wily old fox. He's been around the block a few times, and I think that if you were to match up Matchroom fighters with Frank Warren fighters or Queensbury with Matchroom fighters, for the most part, Matchroom are prepared to take the gamble with their fighters. Frank's prepared to put his best fighters in against the guys that are not quite ready at Matchroom. And if you look at that stable, there's a lot of guys there that are not ready or have been rushed and have been come up short at the highest level. And not because they're not good enough, but I think they weren't ready at the time. They needed 4 or 5 more fights. They needed more experience. They need to be managed and guided differently. But they took the money, or they were told at the time, well, this is the best I can do for you for your career. You're going to have to take this fight, mate, or I'm going to put somebody else on the card. That's what it all seems to me. I could be wrong. Do you think by having out pressure on Frank, especially after the very poor TV views BT show had, the BT shows. See, I think there are ways that BT can very quickly improve their TV ratings. Very quickly. I tell you, I could build a vision, right, for BT that would surpass anything that Matchroom are doing at the moment. And I'd know how to do it. BT has a platform to do it. But what BT have to do is to think outside the box. But the people BT have inside there don't have what it takes to think outside the box, to think. But I will tell you now, I'm going to give it to you, BT, because I know you're all listening. I know you listen to what I say, but I'm going to give you what you need to do to go to the next level. First of all, BT, you need to connect with the YouTube community. You need to commit to the YouTube community. And what you need to do is have a fan zone. Launch a fan zone where you can have popular YouTube channels coming in and talking about their favorite sport, and have them in a fan zone. So it'd be, when you have the football on, have a YouTube area to it. Have the YouTube show. Have a YouTube show where you can invite people on to talk about it. Not just have the experts on. Have YouTubers on. Have a fan zone, because everyone's on YouTube, and that's gonna build your ratings up, because you're now not just putting content on YouTube. You're now interacting with YouTube, and you are now not separate from the universe, but you are collaborating with the universe. You are part of another virtual universe. So BT, pull your fingers out. Somebody inside your creative team, get involved on YouTube. Build your YouTube audience. That's how you do it. You build your YouTube audience. You know, build your YouTube audience. Another audience you need to build in. Get into the Twitch audience. There's so many people over in Twitch. You start streaming over in Twitch, it'd be something. Boxing on Twitch, that'd be nice to see. You know, and also BT, think about potentially doing some free shows on Freeview. Doing some shows on Freeview. I think that might help viewing figures as well. You know, get people to know that there's boxing on a Saturday night. That's probably not getting the views. Get on Saturday night, get on Freeview. That's an idea. So there's some ideas I think there that could work for BT. Because Sky dominate at the moment. Let's be honest, Sky do dominate. And I tell you another thing BT could do as well. They could start doing some crossover shows with boxers and UFC. They could do that. Try and get some fighters from boxing and try and get them into the UFC world. Maybe take 10 boxers, do a show, 10 boxers from the boxing world, and put them into the UFC world. See how that works out. I think that would be something. Crossovers work well. Crossovers work well. I think that'd be really good. I think that would work well as well. So there's a few ideas for BT start breaking through to another network. You know, you now have the launch of Tyson Fury being on UFC 4. Are BT going to capitalize on the fact that their fighter, their brand fighter, or even their flagship fighter is going to be on a new game? How much of that are they going to use of Tyson Fury? Are BT going to use that? Maybe it could do a giveaway at BT for people to watch the show and write in. Do you know what I mean? They've got to use this thing with Tyson Fury to their advantage, I think. So those are just some thoughts there for BT to think about. Sky can afford. Sky can continue to have biased commentary and all that stuff. They can do it because the competition isn't that great. But you make the competition better by having great commentary team. You know, every round, BT, get on it. Virtual scorecards. Get a virtual scorecard. So between the rounds, do a virtual scorecard. In between the rounds, you could have the commentators listening to what the trainers are saying to one another. So you could do trainers' corner. Do you know what I mean? And then you could, when you do the trainers' corner, you could flash back to the fan zone. You could have the two fighters. You could have the two YouTube channels on there, or two YouTube channels talking about it. So then the BT can have a spin-off show for YouTubers. I really do think that is something you really need to be capitalizing on, BT. Sky have done a lot, but I think BT step up. And Queensbury, Frank, there you go. There's some ideas for you there. If you need any more ideas, I'm more than happy to discuss with you, Queensbury and Frank Warren, of ideas on how you could start branding your fighters, because you really need to brand your fighters more. You've got some good fighters in your camp. You know how to manage fighters, but you can find new ways of promoting your fighters too. You know, I've got some brilliant ideas, and I'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss them with you. And I think they're ideas that you really need to be listening to now. Not for me, but you need to be looking at new ideas. So yeah, that would be something. So yeah, I think I've. Good morning, Paul. By the way, good to see you in the room. So, anybody got any thoughts about what I've got to say here? Always nice to hear what you all think. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Frank and Eddie. I really am. I think it's historical. I think it needs to happen. I think having the two guys working together would be good. We'd have better fights in boxing. And yeah, let's see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. But again, I'm going to go back to show, substance over show. And a final point, I'll talk about Dillian White and Tyson Fury. I just want to come back to that point as well. There were a lot of people, a lot of experts across YouTube, a lot of experts across Twitter that said that Dillian White, I thought that off topic, but did you see the women's boxing last night? Yeah, I did see it last night. Come for a spliff, Ingram. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thought Jones was hard done by. Yeah, a lot of experts across the YouTube galaxy and across the Twitter galaxy will say, Dillian White, I don't know why you're going to go to the WBC for. Don't know why you use your legal team for. It ain't going to work. Really? Now it's ordered by WBC for Tyson Fury to fight Dillian White if Dillian White gets past Povetkin. Well, you see, that's why sometimes you just can't take people's opinions for anything. You know, the legal team, he had a right by that. Forest Lane Park. Yeah, it's a nice place, Forest Lane Park, actually. So, tell us what your name is, Mr. Sowland. So, there you have it. I didn't see the Jonas fight last night, but you know, the thing is, I'm him. The thing is, what I find really interesting is this. That when you know the promoter's pushing, if you listen to what the promoter said last night or yesterday, the day before the fight, he said, oh yeah, you've got one girl that's in her prime, you know, looks like the face of boxing, oh, she could be the future of boxing. Of course, if a fight gets close, you're gonna push it towards that girl, the girl that's in her prime, rather than Jonas, who is deemed not in her prime no more, is older, and it's just a name. So the fight itself, unless Jonas knocked out Harper, as far as I'm concerned, Harper's the girl that they're pushing now. She's younger. There's less miles on the clock. She's a decent looking girl, world champion. They didn't expect her to be world champion. She's now world champion. So they're making the most of it. You understand? So when you understand the business of boxing, then the decisions you don't even need judges. The decisions are made before the fight is even taking place. You know, if you've got one girl that's being pushed hard, or a girl that's you could see the clear favoritism between Harper and Jodie. You could see Harper being, if you listen to the promoter, listen to his interview, he said it again, oh yeah, she's in her prime. You know, she's looking like the face of boxing or the future of boxing. So when somebody's got a future in boxing and a face in boxing and is in their prime, why would you allow that person to get beat by somebody who's not in their prime, in decline? Do you understand? You know, so that's why when you listen to that stuff, I say to myself, you know what? When a person talks like that, I think to myself, you know what? That's the side A. When a person starts talking like that, that's side A. and Jonas was side B, and she was the underdog. Yeah, she's the underdog in a tough fight anyway, but then there's further stacked against her when if the fight goes close, Harper's going to get it. Harper came in as a champ, not just a hype job prospect. See, you're spinning again what I said. Absolutely, you're spinning what I said. The matchroom mouthpiece is back in play. So, I mean, yeah. So, yeah, that's it, really. Yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts on it all. And, yeah, A side, B side. So you don't even need judges unless B side gets a knockout. The script is already written. The script is already written, and he's already and he was already talking already about planning Harper to meet other fighters down the line. That's just the way it is, boxing fans. Sadly, but that's the way it is. It's no longer just. It's not a case of just two people getting in the ring and having a fight. There's other politics involved with it as well. Other politics, might I say, that are involved. So unlucky Natasha Jonas. I didn't see the fight, but if people are saying that you deserve to won the belt, then I can understand that. I can understand it, but sometimes a knockout is what you need in these situations. Obviously, Harper was able to take those punches. Oh, I didn't see the fight, so I don't know. All right, so I'm out of here now. Have a really good day. A really good day today. Yes. I'm going to enjoy the sea breeze in Worthing today. It's going to be fun. Have a really good day. Take care. Bye-bye.